Hi guys, I'm Chef Charlie Carrington and today I'm going to show you how to make my version of a pork Milanese. So what we're going to do is we're going to chop some parsley and grate some cheese. We're going to mix it into our sort of breadcrumb mix here, so we've got some panko breadcrumbs. Then we're going to bash out our pork, add some mustard on top of the pork, press it into the crumbs, mustard the other side and then press that side. So the reason we're using mustard is it's going to add a lot of flavour and quite a unique, different sort of taste to what you're used to cooking with Milanese. But traditionally you would use sort of, flour, eggs, and then you'd use the breadcrumbs. But this is a really nice, different way of crumbing a piece of pork. So it's our version, and I think it's really delicious. So now I'm going to get this parsley and just chop it nice and fine. And then we're going to mix that through the crumb. And this just adds another burst of colour into this dish. So when we cook the piece of pork, you just get even more sort of, delicious looking and delicious flavour. So now just sort of finely chopped, but also a little bit rough. And then I go in with our Parmesan. And I just use a fine grater. So I'm going to be doing another video on the different types of cheese and, different types of grated products and what a difference it makes to use them in their own way. So that's our crumb there. I'm a big cheese person, so you always can add a little bit more. And then last but not least, I get a little something that's firm. So this is a little rolling pin, but you could use the back of a pot. You can use whatever you want. And you get your piece of pork and then you bash it out like so. Some people like to put a piece of sort of baking paper on top. That does help as well, but it's really up to you. You're just trying to break it down so you get it nice and flat. And I feel when you're making a Milanese or a schnitzel, it's nice to get it quite thin and large, and then you can put more of the crumb mix on it, and it just adds so much flavour. So you really don't need a huge amount of meat to make such a really big main course dish. So there we are. Great, and I just feel that, so it's quite consistent. Get some of our mustard now, just straight on top like that. And then I press that down into the crumb, so I've got my hand that's still dry. So when you're crumbing, I should say, it's good to have a wet hand and a dry hand. Just helps keep it all very clean, especially as you're doing, if you're doing a lot of it. So this hand here, I'm using the spoon. I'm happy to get this one a little bit wet and just applying the mustard, being careful obviously not to get the mustard into the crumbs because it will make them a bit, the sogginess that will stay in the bowl. Flipping that over now. And now the dry hand is just pushing some more of the crumb on top. Pressing that down. And then I can just shake that off. And then I'd have my wet hand to do the next one when you're making a few. That there is my beautiful pork Milanese. So very simple crumb, bit of Parmesan, bit of parsley, and in a second we're going to cook that up and get that golden, delicious pork. It's going to be absolutely delicious with the Parmesan and of course the parsley through it. So now we're going to cook our pork Milanese. So what I do is I add some oil into our pan. So go quite heavy with the oil because the breadcrumbs definitely do soak it up. And it's better to be cooking in a lot of oil that's hot and just have a bit left over and you can get rid of it. So I let the oil slightly heat up. The pan is preheated, so I'm not touching the pan, but I just put my hand across the top and I can just see and feel if it's starting to get warm. And once it starts to get warm, you'll be ready to cook. So now I can feel it starting to get warm. So I just come across with the Milanese and straight into the pan. And you'll see it will slowly start to sizzle around the edges. And then that there, I'll just leave that on that side for a couple of minutes. Once it's nice and golden, then I'll flip it over and we'll be ready to enjoy. So now I'm going to take the Milanese out of the pan and just put it on the chopping board to rest and have a chop in. Just double check it's all cooked through, nice and crispy. So you can see there, it's gone golden and crispy. The cheese has gone really nice and crunchy as well. The parsley speckled through it looks fantastic. So that there is a perfect Milanese, something exactly what you want. So golden and crispy all the way around. Anywhere that's not crisp, it's just about putting it back in the pan. Using a spoon, you can keep throwing the oil on top of that. And that's how you make the perfect Milanese for you and your family.